Is the media in Australia different from when you and I left Australia in the mid-90s, or is that just a perception I've got up here seeing other media from around the world as opposed to just being locked into Channel 9/7, the ABC?
No, I think it's a very shrewd observation that when you and I started working internationally, and certainly during the 90s, you didn't have 14 or 15-year-old girls lecturing the world on climate change and the United Nations, who don't even have a lectern or have qualifications. They're more often the voices when it comes to media. I love the online trolls. I love the public statements that they produce because it offers quasi-experimental research and collection. So when people espouse artificial intelligence, they forget that natural intelligence is laden with stupidity and ignorance in its own right. So who created the artificial intelligence, and why is it better than the people and the humans that have so many flaws in the first place? Again, some individual tried to espouse machine learning was superior because it didn't involve humans. And so when I asked him in this online discussion, who do you think the machines are learning from? He went very quiet because, again, it was an algorithm based on people's behaviour and activities. He just thought because they had a machine in it, it was some sort of superior Terminator event, which was also, developed by humans. So the media and the lens and the public acceptance of what is really low-quality, unsubstantiated opinions or quasi-science, whether it be a celebrity chef telling everyone that a fly bug zapper will keep away COVID, is disturbing. Whether it be a parent that woke up one morning and decided that all vaccinations around the world and through human history was an evil thing, that's concerning that that person has airtime. And as a number of analytics have shown, those people socially connected with similar like-minded people who in lockdown during Instagram are just trying to live vicariously and not and escape the realities of the world are starting to be influenced by it. So, one of the biases is that any false information repeated frequently enough is indiscernible from the truth and reality. So if these are the major broadcast activities and the major contributing individuals, then just what exactly is facts? This is why fact checkers is a booming profession, because so little of it is. And so when you try and express or just even ask a question as to how they came up with that particular analysis, then you're evil because you've asked a question. Jordan Peterson's a very good example. As a professor in psychology, you've got people yelling and screaming at him from the bleachers as to why he's wrong and how he's done this. They haven't even picked up a book, let alone, a career academic. Whether his views are right or wrong, at least he can support his hypotheses and summaries with researched evidence, facts, and case studies. They just decided that they got angry and their voice is more important. And unfortunately, that's the nature of a lot of open source. It's consensus, it's contrition, it's not compliance. It's just, what's least offensive based on, Monday or Tuesday's view of the world.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Tony, because it's not only the media. We used to have the same issue with clients where they would, and obviously we screen our clients for competency and they naturally drop off. But when you start having operational risk management teams without exposure, they think that their knowledge base and their ability to see vulnerabilities and mitigate them and plan them is perhaps at a level that it's not. And it's not necessarily they're delusional, they just don't know what they don't know. But when they do things by consensus and rather than listen to more experienced views, more versatile views, out-of-the-box solutions, when their organisations hire that level of capacity that people reach consensus, consensus forms a wonderful opinion as long as the people forming that consensus have that expertise. And be it a group of public servants in Canberra or God forbid, the Duttons of the world, or be it multinationals in banks in Singapore, albeit groups sitting in Houston or corporate risk officers in America and London, I'm seeing that, as you said, there's an over-reliance on people having an understanding of IT and, hey, look, let's do a new risk framework where it's all software-based. People can then fill it in themselves and we can re-centralise our team back to insert country, England, America, Australia, Norway. The problem is it all falls down that if it's the amateurs that are plugging in that information in any risk assessment, there's obviously the subjectivity of each quantification that gets inputted. But if each of those are wrong by 5% at the end of it, if you had 20 inputs, you're 100% wrong and it's a fiasco. But it makes people feel good that they're saving money, but they're delaying the inevitable that vulnerabilities are going to burn them. I remember years ago, you and I not being the most popular people in that global medical security providing firm, because we basically pointed out that basing all phases of reactions in multinational companies based on a WHO announcement, the World Health Organization, let's base all your phased reactions off when they nominate a particular phase. Well, that's great, but they're going to do that about 3 or 4 months late, and how they perceive it at a global level is not going to be how you need to perceive it for your specific footprint in your specific sector. But that kind of highlights that academic issue. It's interesting when we watch the Australian media, you get some really brilliant academics and some really brilliant epidemiologists, but you also get a lot of people, and recently it was almost comical. There was a person that came on and spoke about epidemiology, and in the entire 15 minutes, this particular Australian academic spoke on Channel News Asia. She raised 2 points. One was that if you're going to go abroad, your trip could be affected by what's happening in that country. And when you go abroad and you're in another country, getting back to Australia could be affected by what's happening back in Australia. And that was basically a 20-minute segment by Channel News Asia. And, alternatively, you see guys, classmate of mine, John Blaxland, talking at ANU, Roger Shanahan on think tanks, and in 30 minutes you get 30 minutes of incredibly insightful, intelligent dialogue, as opposed to if you go away, what's happening where you're back may affect you. And it's embarrassing to see, hey, look, I'm an epidemiologist. I've never actually been outside of a university, but I'm going to give global advice to how a multinational company should set up its counter health programs, how it should inoculate its people, vaccinate them, how it should look at its movement policies. I think the reality is the more mature companies, they are going to go where you're talking. They don't need an expert sitting in Houston if their problems is they can't get 40,000 people into data centers in India. They need people that aren't necessarily academic epidemiologists, that they can actually counter the impact to their workforce getting to and from a data center. So I think there is going to be a mass migration of massive over expenditure on Westerners sitting in America, England and Australia towards people that are as well educated but have been exposed to these problems all their life, so they have an ability to adjust rather than have an argument or a nice chat around with beautiful coffees in lovely rooms in some of the tier 1 cities of the world.